Exploring societal challenges through the lens of civic science. This is the Local Perspectives program with host Diya Dwarakanath.
Hi, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Diya Dwarakanath. Today we're discussing how hydroponic classrooms in local urban schools can help with climate science and sustainability education. We have the pleasure of being joined by Manuela Zamora, the longtime executive director of New York Sunworks, a nonprofit organization that teaches urban gardening and climate science to public school students in New York City. Ms. Zamora, an advocate for sustainability education, co-founded the Hydroponic Classroom Initiative in 2008. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, let's connect the dots. Tell us about hydroponic classrooms and how this all got started.
Well, hydroponics is a technology that is used to grow food and to farm at a small level or a commercial level using only water and without using soil. So it's a really new technology that fits very well in urban environment. And being in New York City, we started with this program with the first classroom at the public school, PS333, where we built a rooftop greenhouse and created a sample or a replication of a farm, a commercial level farm that was going to be used as the new science lab. So students will grow food year round in the classroom and connecting that experience of growing food from seed to harvest with the science concepts that are required to learn in every single grade. That idea sparked from an initial project of New York Sunworks that was called the Science Barge, which was a prototype of an urban farm that existed on a barge on the Hudson River a few years before we started the first classroom.
Oh, interesting. Wow. So you transitioned from a barge to the classroom, and I read that you recently installed a new hydroponic classroom at Bronx Public School, Kappa MS 215. So how much food will it be able to grow, and what happens in the summer when school is closed?
Right. So from that first classroom that I was telling you that we opened actually in 2010 to today, we have opened 350 hydroponic classrooms. So the one you're mentioning is one of those recently opened in the Bronx. And each of those classrooms can grow hundreds of pounds of vegetables during the year. So it's really exciting to see the students not only experiencing the progression of learning to farm from seed to harvest, but again, making those specific connections to science and sustainability education year-long in the classroom. So literally hundreds of pounds of vegetables per school that are distributed in the classroom and among the school's communities, and the families can also enjoy literally the fruit of the labor of the students as they learn science and how to grow food in the classroom. As I mentioned, 350 classrooms in the 5 boroughs, and that is 140,000 students farming year-round in New York City.
Wow. Okay. And how does the food distribution work? Do the teachers get involved, or how do you partner with the schools to actually distribute the food to the families and to the to the community?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so the harvest is part of one of the lessons, and we have several harvests throughout the year. But the students will not only learn how to handle the food as they take it out from the hydroponic systems, which could be several types of systems. Therefore, they are harvesting several types of leafy greens, as well as other fruits, tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, you name it. So they harvest all that. They are on a rotation, so they have a harvest calendar. They could harvest every 2 weeks, every 3 or 4 weeks, and that food again is distributed among the students. So we have a harvest calendar as part of the lesson too, that the teachers are trained on how to not only manage the production of food, but also manage the harvest and the food distribution in the community. It's called the harvest lesson, and it's all the time a big celebration day because it's very exciting to have it, but also it is extremely delicious, and the fragrance is fantastic because it's so fresh and so many vegetables and leafy greens that are right there in the classroom.
Okay. And that does sound like a great way to combine the learning and um, the actual sustainability science as well. So, do you develop the curriculum, or is it developed by the schools?
Yes, so when a school partners with New York Sunworks, we go and the planning hand in hand with the principal and the team of teachers that will be working in that specific classroom. So we work with them on a layout, what type of systems they're gonna get, and that's how we install and transform any classroom into an urban farm. And that comes with the grade specific curriculum. So New York Sunworks has developed throughout all these almost 15 years that we're working with schools with the hydroponic classrooms. We have developed year-round curriculum that is grade specific, that is aligned to the mandated science standards for New York State. That means that the teachers can use the classroom to teach the science that is expected to be taught at the specific grade, and that comes as part of the program. So we have a team of teachers on staff that will work, that are specialized on specific grade bands, so K through 5, middle school or high school, as well as a CA certification. And they work one-on-one with the teachers at the partner schools. So the idea is that we provide everything the school needs to run the program, including capacity building, so the school can take all what we provide and they can run on their own as we build capacity. But also we're there for support throughout the year with several teacher training opportunities, one-on-one with the teacher, but also as a group. So that's how the program, has been so well received, and it's been so successful because we really provide what is needed. And at that moment is key for the school to adapt what we provide as best it works for the school. So some schools may have other programs that are combining in science, for example, and therefore what we provide can be merged into what they have already. Other schools may have special needs students that may need adaptation for the lesson, so we provide support for that too. Other schools may have I don't know, a specialized science, and they are pushing the students in a different direction for more research or a lab time for specific subjects. So we can support on that area too. But the idea is that the curriculum we provide, it really fits into the school's culture and the school needs, and it's an addition to improve the quality of the science that they are providing already.
Okay. And I understand that the schools you focus on serving are Title I schools for low income and underserved students.
Correct. So about 80% of the schools we work with are Title I schools, and we really focus on quality science education in the areas that is most needed. And as we've
And
been discussing, is quality science education through the lens of hydroponic farming. So it comes with all other, hands-on and project-based engagement, as well as delicious and fresh food that they harvest throughout the year.
and so so do the schools fund these classrooms, and how does that work with their limited resources?
Yes. So we have also a group within the organization, dedicated people who works on supporting the schools for funding. We are aware that funding is, of course, an issue in schools in general. So some are able to get different funders or sponsors that may want to support them for the program, but the majority really requires support in applications or different ways to get other type of support to really pay for this program. The majority of the programs are funded by the city council representatives, and we help them in the process. So the school applies to that funding for the specific program, and then we provide what they need, the floor plan, the budget, the description of the program, the details of how much training the teachers are going to have, etc. And that's how the majority of the labs are funded. There's also New York State funding. We used to have federal funding, grants from different agencies, grants from foundations, it's a mix of many different resources and sources that we provide the schools, but we help them to get the funding they need. so they can get the program.
Okay, that's good to hear. And I have to ask, you mentioned you used to have federal funding. So have the federal government's changes to school funding and executive orders, how is that or has it affected your current work?
Yeah, well, the DOE funding is not clear yet, so we're all waiting for what's going to happen in the federal budget as well as the city budget. But it has affected in terms of where USDA grants as well as EPA grants that they were funding some of our program. So those are not existing, and we don't foresee they will exist, and at least not next year.
Okay. Does that mean there might be closures to some of these classrooms, or is that something you're figuring out?
Yeah, we are not. We're not expecting to close any of the classrooms. The biggest investment is in the first year investment when you need to purchase the equipment, and that's a very robust training that we provide for the teachers. So year 2 and 3, the cost is really minimal compared to the original cost. So we are not planning on closing any of the classrooms. Actually, we're pushing forward and working really hard to ensure that every single class that is already installed opens and has the program for the entire school year.
Okay, that's also good to
Yeah,
hear. So
yeah.
are you in all 5 boroughs of New York City?
Yes, we're in 5 boroughs, as well as metropolitan areas of New Jersey, and in a couple of counties a little bit north of the city. But
Okay, okay.
the majority of the classrooms are in the 5 boroughs.
Okay. And you mentioned the curriculum that you've developed, of course, teachers, and I assume it conforms to NGSS standards,
Yes.
and that, right? Okay. And so how else do you partner with the community or neighborhoods?
Yes. So the most important part is really to be part of the school community, because the ideal way that the program works is by using the space, the classroom, the curriculum, and all the materials, teaching materials we provide. Ideally, they are used during the school time. So makes the science program robust, and and again, it brings these hands-on and project-based opportunities. When that rolls in that way, there is an enormous amount of food produced, as I mentioned before, and usually is distributed within the community. But sometimes there's even more food that, and therefore is distributed with food pantries or our other organizations that work in the neighborhood. So that's something that we also help the schools to connect. But really, the most important part and the biggest impact happens when the program is implemented during the school time and as part of the science program within the school. We also have an annual youth conference every year at the Javits Center, where all the schools that partner with us are invited to participate. So this is a great experience for students to come as a field trip, and the entire classroom attends the conference. And there are also students who are presenting about the specific projects or content they are learning in their hydroponic classrooms. So this year we had about 35 presentations, all from different partner schools, youth from 4th grade to 12th grade, talking about the experiences in the classroom, what they are working on. It could be integrated pest management, if ladybugs are more efficient than parasitic wasps, to be able to get rid of those aphids that come sometimes into the classroom, or if the pH level is too high or low, etc. All different science content that is discussed and analyzed in the classroom. It's all presented during the conference by students on stage, and an audience of 1,000 students, also from those partner schools, that are listening to their peers and learning from them how they are working in the different classrooms.
Sounds like a youth
Yeah.
research conference or science fair.
Yes. It's a very dynamic conference where students exactly are talking about the research. It's fantastic. So that's another way to partner with the schools communities. And we have also a program that is a controlled environment agriculture certification program that's only for high schools, and that is a specific group of students who take a year-long elective class, and they get this control environment agriculture certification from New York Sunworks, which is recognized for prior learning credit at LaGuardia Community College, and we're working on a couple additional community colleges that will recognize this accreditation. So that's an extra effort that we've made in the last few years to bring more content and more programming to the schools that partner with us, and they have already a hydroponic classroom operating. So that's an additional resource that the schools can have.
Okay, and the certification can be a way to show their learning and continue forward as well. So what are you learning from the work you've done? You've been doing this for 15 years.
Yeah.
What are you learning from the work, and has anything surprised you?
Yes, well, it's really wonderful to see the students so engaged and in learning science in different ways, but also, and most importantly, in connecting these concepts that they learn in the classroom to relevant aspects of their everyday life. So, why are we learning this? Why is this important for me, or why is this important for my community? So, for me, is such a learning experience all the time to see how the students are making those connections, because our realities are different. The big picture is always interesting, but the specifics of their own connections to their realities is really fascinating, and it's really rewarding to see how much they learn, and how much they retain, how much they remember, and the critical thinking that happens while they are in that process and that journey themselves. So their analysis it really matures and grows, and the connection that they make with their current needs is really impressive. So they not only learn science, they understand what are concepts of sustainability, why it's important to think out of the box, and they also learn the direct connectivity to issues like climate change, climate justice, food justice, and other elements that is part of their reality, and it will be part of their future.
Okay, and can you share anything that has surprised you, or an example of something that comes to mind?
It is surprising to see the students. I think more than 90% of students that we work with, they are so eager to eat everything they produce, and they love the new flavors, and they become so sophisticated in terms of the acidity or the sweetness, or different levels, different types of flavors of the greens they grow, and it goes from you know mm, leafy greens that you would recognize to some that are very hard to find in the market, but they grow such an enormous diversity variety of crops, that is really fascinating to see their knowledge, from the point when they start to when they end that year program. It's really incredible how sophisticated they come in terms of food, but also in terms of science content. So that's always wonderful to see. There are students who have never tried a tomato before, and they are harvesting and eating it, and their flavor, changes. It's a transformative experience. But also, I go to classrooms, and there are greens that I have never tried before, and it's also transformative for me to taste other crops that I have never known before. Many very culturally relevant to the different communities. So it's a great learning curve, but also a great connector to learn about our different backgrounds. So, why is I don't know, basil relevant to me, or not, or to others, or maybe mustard seeds, or other things they have in the classroom. So it's beautiful connector in addition to a great learning experience.
Yeah, food and culture are important. They often go hand in hand. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, what unanswered questions do you still have after doing this work? And what are some of the obstacles to getting those insights?
Yeah. Um, well, one additional positive aspect is that the students can go through this program for several years. So it's not 1 year experience. So literally from kindergarten to 12th grade, the program has content and science content that is year long and grade specific. So you can do 12 years of learning because of all the science that is embedded within growing food from seed to harvest. So that allows for enormous amount of learning for teachers as well as for students. Um, I think it is important for us to work hand in hand with the principals. The principals uh, are such an important component of the community, obviously. And when you see an engaged principal that is supporting an engaged teacher, it's really wonderful to see the results because it only benefits the students and the community. So I think principals need a lot of support in terms of um, allowing them to run their schools as best as possible. And so that's some of the unanswered questions that I have. It's like, well, maybe the city, the Department of Education can provide more on that end so they can really be the best leaders they can. And that trickles down to the entire community.
Okay, okay. And what do you think are some of the obstacles to getting that insight on how to support principals?
I think, like always, resources. It's something that I wish education mm, would have would be the priority on every budget. I mean, it seems for us that we're in science and in education a no-brainer that you need to invest in the next generation of professionals. Therefore, we need to invest in our schools and our teachers, and that is what I think is always stays a little short because um, some governments have other priorities, and therefore that is reflected in the budget and how much is put into education. So that's something that I always feel that we need to push to get more as a city as well as a state and as a country. We need to invest and put more in education, from resources for schools and classrooms, but also for teacher salaries, for principals, training and salaries, etc. And overall, education needs attention and needs resources for sure. And then I really admire how the system in New York City works in terms of allowing the schools and the principals have some level of independence in terms of managing their programming and the curriculums, and how is that implemented in the schools. I think that's incredibly positive for the communities those schools serve. And at the same time, those general standards that are guidance, like next generation standards, and push for certain baseline standards are also important. And I would wish we could add to those the need for climate education in our schools. That is something that teachers, principals bring programs to their schools because they believe it's important. A push for a bigger picture, a bigger request of having climate education as part of the curriculum, I think would be very beneficial for our students.
Okay. And what actionable advice would you share with other organizations interested in doing similar work?
I think it is important to understand the communities we work with and to see how the program you're offering fits within the priorities of those communities. As I mentioned before, for New York Sunworks, we can go to any school and really work with the school community, with the principal and the teachers and the parents too, on fitting what is the most important part of the program. How can this program improve what they are looking for? So as I mentioned before, maybe it is really lab time and research on science, but maybe it's access to food, and therefore we support the programming implementation based on the priorities of the school. So I think that's key for any program to succeed, because it really goes hands in hand with what the school needs, and therefore, it turns into a productive partnership.
Makes sense. And I have to ask, what's next for you and for the nonprofit?
Yes, thank you for asking that. We are in, as I mentioned, 350 public schools. We're adding another 100 schools in the 5 boroughs in the next year. That's immediate next, but we have the goal to be in every single school in New York City. So we have some work in front of us to do. But we're also growing beyond New York. We just opened a new partnership in Birmingham, Alabama. We're going to be working with 8 schools there. I started in September. We just had a training, 25 teachers that will be working with our program and teaching our curriculum in those schools. Again, partnering with those communities, so what we provide really fits their needs and prioritizing their goals, but with our partnership, improving the quality of science education, but also the access to food and the access to the experience of growing from seed to harvesting and eating everything you grow, because there's nothing more fresh and delicious than something you just harvest, a few minutes before you eat it. And what better than growing food in your classroom year round with your peers and your teachers, and sharing that with your families.
Absolutely. And is that what the farmer scientist term means for your students?
Correct. Yes. So we came up many years ago with the term of farmer scientists. All students that work with the New York Sunworks program are farmer scientists, precisely because of that. Yes, we're doing science while we're farming, because we are farming year round, and that's always on that cycle of seed to harvest. And that's where we embed all this content that is so relevant and specific to the grade and to the age of each of the students, and into the learning curve too. So it's through farming, but it's really a concept of being a scientist while you're growing food in the classroom.
And with that, we have to wrap up. To our audience, thank you for watching. Please share with us how this episode inspired you to take action by clicking the link in the description below. And remember, science belongs to all of us. Thank you so much, Manuela, for your time and expertise today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and look forward to visiting a school with you and bring your audience and your camera then.